I'm not a-hole for refusing to take my nieces/nephews out to fun places anymore since my sister won't help with the bill. My little sister has 6 kids, 10 male, 7 female, 6 female plus 6 female, 4 male and 2 female, who I love and babysit when I can. I'm child-free, and my husband and I have a decent amount of fun money saved for us to spend on whatever we want. And I'd use mine sometimes to take my nibblings fun places. I still take them all out somewhere at least 2 to 3 times a month. Now, when it was just the oldest, I'd take him for a day to give my sister and brother-in-law a break. I'd take him to museums, fairs, kids' play places, Chuck E. Cheese, amusement park, etc. With just one kid, it was pretty easy to do. Then the second oldest came along, and I was still able to swing it. But then with the addition of the twins, it became harder to afford. Not to mention watching 4 kids is way harder than watching one. By the time the 4-year-old came around, I couldn't afford to take them all to the same places anymore. It cost too much. So I started taking them cheaper/free places, like the park, free kids' days at the museum, the mall, swimming at my house, etc. Now with the 2-year-old, I've totally stopped taking them anywhere that costs more than a couple bucks each. But last week when I was dropping the kids off at my sister's place, the oldest asked if we could go to the fair next month. I didn't think I'd be able to afford that, but didn't want to outright say no, so I told him I wasn't sure, but would see. After the kids ran off, my sister asked why I wasn't sure about the fair, and I told her I didn't think I'd be able to afford tickets and food for 7 people. She said it couldn't cost that much, so I told her that each ticket was about $10 the last time we'd gone, and that wasn't counting the money spent on food. I said I'd be happy to take them all to the fair if she paid for at least the tickets. She went off saying that she and brother-in-law didn't have that kind of money, how they had 8 mouths to feed and clothes to buy, and she couldn't waste money on the fair. I asked why she thought I was made of money, and she said I had more money than them, and it's not like I have 6 kids to care for. I told her I loved taking the kids out, but if she couldn't help with paying for the expensive places, then the kids would have to be content with going to the park or swimming at my house. Sister said I'm a huge a-hole. And when I told our parents, they said it was sorta a-holish since I only take them out a couple times a month instead of caring for them 24/7 like my sister. So now I don't know. Hub says I'm not the a-hole, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, I could swing taking them all to the fair, but it's just so expensive. Am I the a-hole for asking for help paying? Now for the top comments before reading Opie's little update. Not the a-hole. So if she can't afford places like the fair because of having 8 mouths to feed, why does that responsibility have to fall on you? She's being entitled instead of grateful that you've done as much as you have all these years. Being child-free doesn't mean to have all this disposable income to spend on other people's kids, no matter how much you may love them. Not the a-hole. OP, you take your nieces and nephews out 2 to 3 times a month, which is far more than most aunts and uncles do. And rather than be grateful, your sister is demanding you do more. Your sister is quick to count and spend your money. I think you've found a very wise solution to continue spending treasured time with your nieces and nephews without breaking the bank. You've done nothing wrong at all. It's your sister who's being an unreasonable a-hole. I grew up very close to my aunt and uncle, and some of my fondest memories with them are from when one or both of them babysat us at their house while my parents were both at work. Mom was a part-time worker, so it only happened occasionally that her and my dad's shifts lined up like that, and would spend time with them. My brother and I would play ball hockey in the basement with my cousin. We'd play GameCube, etc. They don't need to be taken to expensive places to create a strong relationship and happy memories with you. The fact that you want to be so present in their lives is amazing. Trust me, my aunt and uncle passed away now, but I will always have my love and memories with them. And your nieces and nephews will too, whether you paid to take them somewhere or not. Definitely not the a-hole here. Not the a-hole. If your sister doesn't have that kind of money, maybe they should stop having children. I'd have stopped at the same point as you. I wouldn't be willing to look after 4 kids even if the tickets were paid for. She should be grateful you're essentially offering free childcare. This. So not only is Opie babysitting 6 children for free, but must also be willing to spend $100 plus as well? 6 kids at the fair may cost $70 to get in, but fair food is also expensive. Plus, I can't even imagine the stress of juggling 6 kids at the fair. Bathrooms alone would be a nightmare. Update. I want to thank everyone for all the amazing comments and DMs. After all the resounding not day hall comments, I've come to the conclusion that I'd become used to my family's treatment of me over the years. I'd always been aware it wasn't really fair, but I put up with it to keep the peace and see my nibblings regularly. But I can't keep spending such outrageous amounts of money on kids that aren't even mine anymore. Especially when I'm not even getting a half-assed thank you in return. It's not fair to me. So I called my sister and told her I won't be taking her kids out for fun days for the foreseeable future. I told her that she's been really entitled to expect me to foot the bill to babysit her kids, and if she apologizes sincerely, then I might start taking them out again sometime in the future. But for now, I'm gonna keep my distance. She didn't take it well, and called me a lot of hurtful names before hanging up on me. Not long after, Mom called me and told me I was being selfish and rude. But I snapped at her that she was being rude. Expecting me to pay upwards of hundreds of dollars a month for kids that I didn't give birth to while cuddling my sister was horrible parenting. And I said how sick and tired I was of being treated like free babysitting for my sister just because I never popped out any grandkids for them. And if she and my sister thought taking all the kids out 3 times a month was no big deal, then I'll send her the bill. Which I did. I sent her pictures of the receipts from the last 3 places I took my nieces/nephews. Each one being no less than $70. She hasn't called or texted me back. I'll just see what happens. But thanks everyone. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to buy stepsister old consoles if he wants her to have them so bad? So I, 16 female, started babysitting 2 years ago. I then moved from that to a retail job back in October. I have saved some money and decided to indulge in getting some vintage consoles. Consoles I missed out on, but see games I want to play. I found places that sell them pretty cheap. I've always been a gamer, and it's the only passion I'm glad I can explore more than the older stuff. Ever since I got a 3DS, not one of the older consoles, but I wasn't allowed to have before, my stepsister, 14 female, has wanted to use them too. Mostly the PlayStation and Nintendo consoles. I have always said no. She's careless and demanding, and to me that's the #1 reason she isn't going to get her hands on them. One day we got into a huge fight over it, and she laid on a guilt trip about siblings always sharing, how I'm her big sister and should include her in this stuff. I told her it wasn't going to work on me. She ran to tell my dad, who has bent over backward for her since he married his wife 5 years ago, and sure enough, he tried to do the same again. He told me they weren't really mine since I was his minor kid, they were his. And he wanted me to share with her. I told him he didn't earn the money, that if he argued about him paying the bills, I could just store them until I move out. He told me to stop being a brat and stop hurting my sister's feelings. I told him if he wanted her to have an older console so much, he needed to go out and buy her one, and let her be careless with that, not with something I paid for. That way, it can be something new to add to the list of things she's broken. Both laptops for virtual learning, the remote for our main TV, the drawer to my desk, 2 of my phones, 6 of her phones, her little keepsake box that my grandparents got for each of us the year my dad married her mom, the family console, 3 discs for video games, and not forget my necklace that my mom bought for me when I was a baby. He told me I should be keeping track, and that they have always done their best to replace what was broken. I replied that he and his wife should teach her how to be less destructive, and it's not my job to do it. Then I pointed out not everything could be replaced or fixed easily. He told me I was behaving like a 6-year-old instead of a 16-year-old, and that I had no right to talk back to him. That was 3 weeks ago, and he's still mad about it. Am I the a-hole for how I talked to him? Not the a-hole. You're actually being very reasonable and articulate about the issue, and your dad is being a child. Yes, siblings normally are encouraged to share, but that's a pretty reasonable worry when the person you're sharing with doesn't have respect for someone else's things. He's mad because you're making sense. Plus, it's retro game consoles, which are like sacred. Not the a-hole. Your stepsister destroyed enough things already. You fearing she would be careful is justified. Store the things and move out. How did they replace something as precious as your mom's gift? They bought one that was like it, but it was never the same. For starters, it was from them and not my mom. I had kept that damn thing safe for 15 years, and then she decides to grab it while I was wearing it and broke the necklace. So she destroyed the necklace from your mom on purpose? Frankly, the whole siblings should always share thing is BS. You're allowed to have your own things, and to set limits in sharing with people who are careless/break stuff. Also, I don't believe for a second that your sister's both that careless and that entitled. Sounds like there's more to the story, and that most likely she's intentionally breaking things and claiming it was accidents. Breaking things during temper tantrums is still intentional, not the a-hole. I don't think she meant to break it, but she also didn't regret breaking it either. I think she just lost her temper because she didn't get what she wanted, and yeah, but still freaking sucks honestly. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for being honest about why we decided on fertility treatment over adoption? My friends and I have always had a mostly negative view on people who exhaust themselves with doing fertility treatments when they can't have kids, instead of just adopting existing children. My husband and I ended up struggling with infertility, so we decided right away to start on adoption first. We tried both a private adoption agency and foster care, and got as far as the home study both times. Our house is old, and there are a lot of weird idiosyncrasies with the house, but we're completely up to date on electrical and plumbing codes, so we thought this would be just a formality. 2 generations of my family grew up there, and it was perfectly safe. Not to them. They had huge issues with the house. They considered 2 of the bedrooms to not be a bedroom because it was too small. They didn't like that the main level floor was uneven. We have a problem with squirrels trapping themselves in the roof somehow, and the social worker was appalled that we just let them scratch themselves out. There's nothing we can do. We don't know how they're doing it, and unless children are squirrels now, no child is getting up there to get stuck that way. It was ridiculous, but it didn't matter. The verdict from both was that our home was fundamentally unsafe. We did look into fixing it. Every single person who ever owned that home had tried to fix the things that were wrong, but we tried again. The house just couldn't be fixed to their standards without becoming actually dangerous. It was fine and safe to live in, but we also wouldn't be able to sell because it was imperfect. The verdict was that if we wanted to adopt a child, we would have to demolish our home to sell the land and then buy a new house on top of agency fees. We did the math. The truth was that, with housing prices in our area, adopting a child would actually cost us at minimum $450,000. Even if we had to do IVF surrogacy, it would only cost us about $130,000. It no longer made any sense to adopt, so we committed to doing treatment. Our total ended up being much less than that because, thankfully, our first round of IVF worked, and we didn't need a surrogate. We now have a child. One of our friends made a very, honestly, ignorant post about spending $100,000 on a child of your own while children sit in foster care. I decided to comment on it, telling her the full story for the first time, explaining how expensive adoption can truly be. There's been a lot of comments, and now she and some of our friends are now mad at me for making adoption look like a bad and terrible thing. I was just trying to show that there isn't one side to this, and that there are valid reasons to make both choices. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I think you and all of your friends are horrible people for sitting in judgment about how people handle their own infertility. I think you're doubly bad for not saying, I've had a change of heart after realizing there's so much I don't understand about adoption and IVF, and instead saying, you don't understand. I'm better than others who choose IVF because in my situation, it's okay. Everyone sucks here. I understand that. My opinions have changed, and I regret how ignorant I was. Everyone sucks here. You're part of a group that habitually judges the family planning of others. You can't be surprised when they then judged you. They didn't have the life-changing experience you did, and therefore haven't changed. It sounds like you all need a wake-up call. When friendships are based on othering others in circumstances you can't imagine, they aren't healthy friendships. Think about if this group is worth your time and learn from your mistakes. I'm sorry things were so difficult for you, and hope your pregnancy goes well. A quirky little house with a squirrel attic sounds like the setting for a children's novel. Not the a-hole. 99% of the people who spout just adopt literally have no idea of how adoption and foster to adopt work. None. Now that you've gone through it, you know it's not the easy path that so many seem to think it is. Long story short, I had both my kids via IVF for about $5,000 out of pocket for IVF through hospital births. That $5,000 wouldn't even have covered a lawyer's retainer and a home study if we wanted to adopt. Plus, my IVF treatments involved me, my husband, and my doctor was only concerned with whether or not I could safely carry a pregnancy to term. He didn't care how much I made, what kind of parent he thought I'd be, the state of my marriage, what my house looked like, what my colleagues think of me, etc. For us, IVF was by far the best option. Never judge until you've walked a mile in someone else's shoes. It was ridiculous how much cheaper everything was. I ended up being able to do a home birth with a midwife, so I didn't have the hospital bill. I had been so concerned about the cost, but it was cheaper than I've heard of some people's spontaneous hospital births being. Kind of disturbing, honestly. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for choosing not to follow my in-laws' naming tradition for my daughter? My husband, 24 male, and I, 24 female, had our daughter in November. Early in my pregnancy, my husband told me he would let me choose the name because he really struggled to like names, and he didn't want to make the process more complicated than it needed to be. I chose the name the day we found out she was a little girl. I told my husband, he gave me the thumbs up, and I kept it between us, and my best friend who made her engraved baby blanket. Outside of that, nobody else knew. We announced her name the day after she was born. The name was controversial within my husband's family. Our daughter was the first granddaughter, and we did not go with the tradition in their family of naming the first grandson/granddaughter a specific name. To make sure I'm being clear, in my mother-in-law's family, the first male of each generation is named John, for example, and the first female is named Emily. Mother-in-law's oldest grandson is John, but our baby girl is the first granddaughter and was not called Emily. They are very hurt that I would not honor their tradition. It has become a feud because they feel like I disrespected them, and that I should have wanted my daughter to carry on a long-held family tradition that means so much to the family, and I have struggled with some guilt since. My husband told them it was our decision, and sooner or later the tradition was going to be broken, and I did nothing wrong. But my mother-in-law, and especially my oldest sister-in-law, the mother of John, have not given up. Sister-in-law claims that by using a different family middle name, a name shared by both a grandmother of his and a grandmother of mine, it was an even bigger middle finger to them. I told them she is mine and my husband's daughter, and our wishes should be respected. They claim it was still an a-hole thing. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Repeat after me. I'm sorry you feel that way. Call us when you're over it. This. I hope no one in their family wants to document their genealogy. That would be a nightmare with all those Emilys and Johns. It also becomes a big problem in the digital age with mail, medical records, insurance, etc. Trust me, my husband's grandfather changed his name to a name he liked. Let's say Michael. Then he named his son Michael, and his daughter named her son Michael, and my husband is also Michael. Not one of them goes by Michael except on legal documents. We're constantly getting mail for each other, having to clarify records, etc. Yes, I honestly love my son's name, named the third, but using the family name was a huge mistake. Name Senior is an imprisoned child violator. Name Junior always had issues with background checks before she transitioned to female when our son was 3 years old, and then she hated constantly hearing her dead name. Not Dayhole. This entitled mentality that some family members have over their kids' lives is unbelievable. Name your child what you like and enjoy the good life. Also, congrats. Edit. I might also add that the sister-in-law is probably projecting regret that you did something she wouldn't. I just get flabbergasted that somebody can expect the name of the child can be defined like that. Not Dayhole. Why do people think that a couple's baby is somehow the possession of the whole family? This is your baby. They don't get a say, period. I can't imagine the entitlement of a family thinking they should have more say over a baby than the baby's own mother.